We were supposed to be unwinding, not unraveling. The plan was simple. 3 nights at a rental house in La Jolla, 2 blocks from the sand, with my family. My parents had booked it as a way to reconnect. Everyone under one roof for some much-needed downtime. Brooke and I had done this trip before. Usually, we brought board games, groceries for taco night, and left our stress at the door. This time the stress came with us. Or rather, she did. Brooke arrived 40 minutes late, pulling up in a gray Lexus that didn't belong to her. I stood up from the patio as soon as I saw it and walked halfway down the driveway. I expected her to step out alone, maybe apologize for the delay, maybe mention traffic. But the second door opened, and he stepped out. I felt something hollow open in my chest. Ryan. I recognized him from one of the quarterly events at her office. He was younger than me by a few years, maybe 5. Soft-spoken, clean-cut, always standing just a little too close to her in company photos. But I told myself it was probably nothing. Until now. "Oh, hey," Brooke said casually, reaching into the back seat for her bag. "I hope it's okay I brought Ryan." His plans fell through and I figured the more the merrier, right? She didn't make eye contact when she said it. Just breezed past me toward the house like this was normal. Ryan followed a few feet behind, offering me a polite, almost apologetic nod. "Jonathan," he said. "Good to see you again, man." I forced a smile. "Yeah, you too." Inside, everyone was already unpacking. My dad was setting up the grill. My sister was unloading groceries. Nobody thought twice about the extra guest. Brooke introduced him like it was no big deal, said he worked in analytics or development, some vague department that explained nothing but sounded just important enough to silence questions. But I wasn't questioning his job. I was questioning the way he looked at her when she wasn't looking, and the way she knew that I'd notice, but didn't care if I did. That's when I saw the bracelet. Gold. Delicate. Not her usual style. I'd never seen it before. "New?" I asked, motioning toward it as she reached for a bottle of wine. She glanced down, touched it briefly. "Oh yeah, from the spa at the Pendry. Treating myself after the week I've had." It was smooth, too smooth. But then her phone fell out of her bag, and with it, something fluttered to the floor. She reached down quickly, too quickly, but not before I saw the edge of a hotel keycard peeking from the case. I didn't say anything right away, just watched as she slipped it back inside like it was nothing. I wanted to believe it was nothing, but I couldn't, because that morning, while reviewing a shared account statement, checking a charge for my own car maintenance, I saw a room service bill from the Pendry San Diego. 2 breakfast entrees, fresh juice, coffee, a gratuity charge. The timestamp was 9:34 a.m. This morning. I hadn't asked her where she was. She hadn't offered. But when I saw that charge, I told myself maybe she met a friend, a colleague, a conference call with breakfast. I told myself 100 things. I wanted to believe her. I've always wanted to believe her. But here she was. New bracelet. Room key in her phone case. Ryan arriving in the same car. She didn't need to explain. The pieces were already falling into place. And still, she kept talking. "Sorry for the delay. Work was brutal this week. I'm running on fumes. Seriously, if I fall asleep at dinner, someone splash water on me." She made it sound lighthearted. Exhausted but funny. Heroic even. Like she'd barely survived another round of deadlines and that I should admire her grit instead of question her behavior. And then came the kicker. "I don't know how he puts up with me," she said to my sister with a chuckle, tilting her head toward me like I was some long-suffering saint. "I've been all over the place." Everyone laughed. I laughed too. But inside, something cracked. Because I realized what she was doing. Brooke didn't just walk in with another man and pretend it was fine. She was controlling the story. That little line, "I don't know how he puts up with me," wasn't a throwaway. It was strategic. She was planting an idea, a version of herself as overwhelmed and distant, and of me as just there, passive, cold maybe, detached. She was already laying the groundwork for what might come next. I watched her float around the kitchen like nothing was wrong. She opened a bottle of wine, poured a glass for Ryan without asking. then one for herself. She didn't pour one for me. I was standing 5 feet away, and she didn't look in my direction once. We were 3 hours into the weekend, and I already knew something was broken. We all sat down for dinner on the back patio, grilled halibut, Caesar salad, and rosemary potatoes. Ryan ended up next to Brooke. I was across from them. I couldn't stop watching their body language. The slight lean when they talked, the way she touched his arm when she laughed. She never used to do that with anyone else. Not like that. Maybe the others didn't see it. Or maybe they didn't want to. But I saw it. When the conversation turned to work, Brooke perked up. She started talking about a product launch she'd led, a pitch meeting she'd nailed, and how Ryan saved the day with the back-end data. She used his name every time. Not he, not our analyst, always Ryan, said with just enough weight to mark his importance in her life. And when I tried to join in, mentioning something from my office, something light, she barely responded. A nod, a polite cool, then back to Ryan. It wasn't the content that hurt. It was the erasure. It was like I was watching her from behind glass. Like I was no longer part of her world, but merely watching it play out, powerless to stop it. After dinner, I walked down to the beach alone. The others stayed behind, clearing plates, chatting about nothing. I left without saying a word. The sky was a dark violet, the tide rolling in quiet waves. I used to love this view, the endless stretch of water, the sound of the ocean dissolving everything. But that night it felt distant, unfamiliar, even cruel. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Brooke. Don't stay out too long. They're starting a movie. No heart emoji. No miss you. Just a reminder. A check-in that wasn't really a check-in. A statement of control. I stared at the message for a long time before locking my phone again. I thought about going back. Sitting on the couch like nothing was wrong. Pretending. But I stayed outside until the house lights dimmed and the sound of waves drowned everything else out. It didn't start in La Jolla. That was just the first time the truth introduced itself to me without a disguise. The patterns began months earlier, subtle, scattered changes that seemed harmless in isolation. But when I think back on them now, they all connect. Every shift, every unexplained moment, every carefully chosen excuse. It's as if I had been walking through fog, and only now could I see how deep into it I'd wandered. It began with her phone. Brooke used to leave it everywhere. On the nightstand, the kitchen counter, the coffee table. It never mattered because she never had anything to hide. But then, one evening, I noticed it was always face down. And not just that, it was silent, not even a vibration. She took it with her into the bathroom, into the closet, under her pillow while she slept. When I joked about how glued she was to it, she smiled and said it was just a habit now. The lock screen had changed, too. A new 6-digit passcode. I only found out because one morning, while packing for work, she asked me to plug in her charger and the phone buzzed. When I reached for it, she practically leapt across the room. Sorry, work thing, she said quickly, brushing it off. You know how it is. Compliance is watching everything these days. It didn't feel like a work thing. Then came the second phone. I only found it because I was looking for a yoga mat in her trunk. It was tucked in a zipped side pocket of her gym bag. The screen was black, but the moment I pressed the button, it lit up. No case, no wallpaper, just a basic model that looked barely used. It didn't have her name in the contacts. It didn't even have a passcode. But there were messages. Short ones. Some only emojis. A flame. A hotel pin. A heart. I didn't recognize the number. I should have taken a screenshot *T, done something, anything. But I panicked. I put it back exactly where I found it and told myself maybe it belonged to a friend, maybe it was a work test device. I gave her the benefit of the doubt again. But the doubt was starting to win. She joined a second gym across town. Told me it was because the first one didn't have enough space during peak hours. I asked why she didn't just switch completely if it was so inconvenient, and she shrugged, saying she liked the instructors at both. I didn't buy it. The mileage on her car didn't add up either. She drove a lot, but not that much. I checked the odometer when I took it in for service one weekend and compared it to her claim schedule. There were extra trips she never mentioned. Little gaps of 2 hours here, 3 hours there. Time that didn't match where she said she'd been. I didn't confront her right away. I told myself that maybe I was overthinking it, that I'd become paranoid. I told myself that people change, that schedules shift, that marriages go through seasons. Then came the jewelry. First, a pair of earrings. I noticed them when we went out to dinner one night. Simple, expensive, not her usual style. I asked where she got them. She said they were from a client. A holiday thank you gift. But there was no box, no tag, and no mention of it at the time. Then a necklace. Then a bracelet. Every piece more lavish than the last. A gift card I forgot about, she'd say. Or a promotion thing from work. She had explanations. They were just always a little too late. But the moment I knew something had shifted beyond repair, the corporate dinner. It was a Thursday night in downtown San Diego. Brooke's company was hosting a fundraising gala for their charitable partners. Black tie, valet parking, open bar. I'd gone to a few of these before. I always played the supportive husband role, shaking hands and making polite small talk while she worked the room like a seasoned diplomat. This time I felt like a ghost. From the moment we walked in, I could feel the distance. She didn't wait for me at the entrance. She didn't introduce me to anyone. She didn't even ask if I wanted a drink. Ryan was there, of course. I recognized him instantly. Same suit from La Jolla. Same overconfident smile. He was holding a glass of scotch and standing just close enough to her to blur the line between professional and personal. When Brooke saw me watching them from across the room, she didn't wave me over. She didn't smile. She just turned back to him and laughed at something he said. And the way she laughed, hand on his arm, head tilted back, that wasn't how she laughed with coworkers. That was her flirtation laugh. I'd seen it before. I knew it int asterisk mately. She used to laugh like that with me, back when things were real. I made my way across the room slowly, stopping to speak with someone from her leadership team. I kept glancing over. Ryan poured her a second drink. She accepted it. He leaned in closer. She didn't move. I caught her eye at one point. She held my gaze for half a second, then looked away like I was just another colleague in the crowd. Like I didn't matter. That was the moment I felt myself detach. Like something in me stepped back and said, "You're watching the woman you love vanish in plain sight, and she doesn't even care that you're watching." Eventually, I excused myself and walked out to the valet lane. The air outside was cooler, quieter, but my heart was still pounding. I stood there for 20 minutes watching guests come and go, trying to decide if I should just leave. But then I saw them, Brooke and Ryan coming out together. Not arm in arm, but close enough. Their heads leaned together in conversation, her heels clicking fast to match his pace. She wasn't tipsy. She wasn't smiling. She looked determined. She looked like she had somewhere to be, and he was going with her. They crossed the street and turned the corner toward the parking garage. I didn't follow them right away. I waited, counted to 60, then walked after them, hands in my pockets, chest tight with something I didn't want to name. I turned the corner just in time to see them enter the elevator bank. She reached out and touched his back as they stepped in. He pressed a button. The doors closed. No glance back. No hesitation. I stood there, frozen, long after the elevator disappeared from sight. I could hear my own heartbeat. I could hear the lies she told me that week, each one playing like a broken record. That was the night everything fell into focus. No more theories. No more second-guessing. No more pretending. The woman I married was slipping away from me, and she wasn't hiding it anymore. And I knew. Whatever was happening between them wasn't innocent. I didn't sleep that night. After the gala, I got in my car and drove. I wasn't sure where to go. Home didn't feel right. So I coasted down the freeway, headlights painting lines into the darkness. Every exit sign another reason to keep driving. The image of Brooke and Ryan stepping into that elevator played over and over again. The way her hand had touched the small of his back. The way she didn't even check to see if I was watching. I ended up at a 24-hour diner off the 805. Sat in a booth by the window, ordered a coffee I didn't touch. My hands were shaking, not from caffeine, but from something deeper. A kind of grief I wasn't ready to claim yet. because I still needed to know for sure. I couldn't live in the space between suspicions and truth anymore. I needed confirmation. I needed evidence. That's when I remembered the corporate apartment. A few months back, Brooke mentioned that her company had picked up a furnished place in Little Italy for out-of-town staff. She said it was just a backup option, never used much, but I remembered her mentioning it in passing again more recently. Something about helping set up the apartment for new hires. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now it hit me differently. Her company HQ was near UTC. This place in Little Italy was 15 miles out of the way. I left the diner just after 1 a.m. and drove downtown. I had no plan, just instinct, and a sick feeling that I wouldn't be surprised by what I'd find. The building was upscale. Security cameras at every corner, but open access to guest parking. I pulled in and parked at the far end, out of view from the entrance. I sat there with the engine off, staring up at the 5th floor. No movement, no lights. I opened the apartment directory on my phone. Brooke had once texted me the address when she asked me to send her something from home. I matched the unit number and opened a notepad app one used for grocery lists. Inside was a string of numbers, her company key code. At the time, she gave it to me so I could water plants they'd staged in the apartment for an event. I never went, but now my fingers typed it into the smart lock panel on instinct. There was a click. The door creaked open. I stepped in. It smelled like lemon cleaner and something faintly floral, perfume maybe, or laundry detergent. The layout was simple. Living room straight ahead, kitchen to the right, bedroom down a short hall. The first thing I saw was a pair of wine glasses on the coffee table, still wet at the base, half full. One had lipstick smudged on the rim. The other had a fingerprint at the bowl's curve, larger than Brooke's. There was a cardigan draped over the back of a chair. Her style, familiar, but it wasn't the only thing there. Next to it was a men's dress shirt, light blue, pinstriped, rolled at the sleeves. Not mine. I walked further in. Every step felt heavy. In the bathroom, a towel was hanging over the shower door, still damp. A man's razor sat next to hers by the sink. 2 toothbrushes in a cup. Hers was pink. His was navy. I opened a drawer under the sink. A travel-sized deodorant, cologne, contacts. The bedroom was the last place I looked. The bed wasn't made. The sheets were twisted, pillows pushed aside. A pair of men's shoes sat at the foot of the bed, pointed slightly outward like he'd kicked them off quickly. It was all there. Everything I needed to know without a single word spoken. But it didn't stop there. I stepped back into the living room and stared at the wine glasses again. I remembered that smart device's log entries. So I walked to the hallway panel, nestled by the thermostat, and tapped the screen. It loaded slowly. My heart pounded. Access log. 10:42 p.m. Entry granted. User code 1, Brooke. 10:43 p.m. Secondary device connected. iPhone, Ryan's device. 10:43 p.m. Secondary device connected. iPhone, Brooke's device. Both their phones had auto-connected to the Wi-Fi. That was it. The undeniable proof. I took pictures of everything. The wine glasses, the shirt, the shoes, the towel, the panel log. I didn't know what I'd need it for yet, but something in me knew I had to preserve it. On my way out, I stopped just inside the front door and stared at the floor. 2 sets of footprints, dust patterns from dress shoes and heels, faint but clear on the hardwood, parallel, side by side. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even feel angry. I just felt hollow. Because the person I loved, the person I trusted most, had chosen this space to build a second life. Not a one-time mistake. Not a drunken lapse in judgment. A routine. Pattern. And it had all happened just a few miles from the home we shared. As I walked back to my car, I replayed our last conversations in my head. The fake stress. The vague hotel nights. The makeup that didn't match the mood. The way she'd started blaming me for her own distance. Like she was preparing for this to become my fault. She wanted to make the break cleaner. Wanted to feel justified. So she painted me as inattentive, distracted, emotionally distant. A safe narrative. And the worst part? I think part of her even believed it. I drove home with the windows down, the cold morning air stinging my face. I didn't stop, didn't eat, didn't sleep. Just opened my laptop when I got home and started organizing everything I had. A timeline, a folder with receipts, photos, **TS, logs. She hadn't just lied to me. She'd taken steps to conceal an entire life. And now I was going to build a mirror to show her exactly what she thought she'd hidden. I opened our shared account again. This time, I looked for anything I'd missed. There it was, charges from hotels in Milwaukee, one in St. Louis, cities she'd claimed to be attending innovation conferences in, more room service, more double breakfasts. I clicked deeper into the transaction records and saw matching Uber rides to boutique hotels, sometimes less than a mile from where she said she was staying. A week before the gala, she had charged a dinner at a rooftop restaurant in Milwaukee. For two. The receipt listed wine pairings for a prefix menu. Over $280 total. On a Thursday, she said she'd been too sick that day to join our video call with my parents. My hands moved faster now, flipping between records. I downloaded every piece. Then I backed it all up to cloud storage. Twice. I wasn't planning revenge. This wasn't about destruction. It was about clarity, about reclaiming truth, about proving to myself that I wasn't crazy, wasn't paranoid, wasn't imagining the growing canyon between us. Because I had it all now. Every mile, every message, every unspoken thing. And once you have the truth, there's no going back. The truth had weight. Not metaphorical, but real. Tangible. It lived in folders across my desktop, **TS on my phone, and a yellow notepad with dates and initials scribbled in a frantic hand. I wasn't sleeping much. I didn't want to. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Laughing with him, lying to me, slipping deeper into something she swore didn't exist. The timeline was my anchor. It started with that room service receipt from the Pendry in San Diego. Then came the one in Milwaukee, dinner for two, February 8th. That same night, she texted me, exhausted from the keynote, going to bed early. I'll call tomorrow. A lie I now had down to the timestamp. Then there was St. Louis in March. Another conference. Another boutique hotel. Another Uber drop-off that didn't match the conference center she told me she was speaking at. I pulled her itinerary from an old email thread and laid it next to the travel charges. They didn't line up. In fact, they barely even touched. The more I looked, the more I found. Flights purchased through her personal card. Reimbursed later as client development. Jewelry from high-end shops in cities she didn't mention visiting. Uber rides ending at private residences or hotels, often booked under business accounts that masked the destination. A second Airbnb account under a variation of her name. Her middle name used as the first, last name shortened. And there was something else. Pattern in the Uber data. On 3 different occasions, San Diego, Chicago, and San Jose, there were round-trip rides that started near her hotel, went to a shopping district or restaurant, and returned not to the hotel but to a separate address entirely. One of those addresses belonged to a corporate apartment Ryan had access to, listed under a consulting firm he used to work for. I couldn't ignore it anymore. This wasn't just carelessness. It was planned, practiced, professional. It was a system. I documented every entry, every timestamp. I cross-referenced emails, bank transactions, calendar invites. My evenings turned into forensic work, sorting through the lies while she sat upstairs in bed with her reports, headphones in, texting someone who wasn't me. I needed to talk to someone, but I didn't want sympathy. I wanted information. That's when Emma came into the picture. Emma is Ryan's wife, or was. I didn't know much about her. I remembered seeing her once at a holiday party. Pretty, soft-spoken, the type to politely excuse herself from office gossip. I wasn't even sure they were still together until I searched his name on LinkedIn and saw her tagged in an anniversary post from the year before. I reached out through a burner email. I didn't want to be reckless, just honest. Hi Emma. You don't know me personally, but my name is Jonathan. I believe our spouses may be involved in something behind our backs. I'm not here to stir up trouble. I just want to compare notes, if you're open to it. If I'm wrong, I'll disappear. If I'm right, you deserve to know. I didn't expect a reply, but 2 days later she emailed me back. Her message was short. I've suspected for a while. I'm not surprised to hear from you. Can we talk? We met at a coffee shop in Del March. Public, neutral, quiet. Emma came in looking like she hadn't slept either. She sat across from me. No makeup, hair tied back, tired in a way I recognized. She slid a folder across the table before even saying hello. Inside, screensh *TS of Ryan's messages. Calendar invites with names blacked out, but one unredacted. B.A. Flight confirmations sent to his personal email, not his work one. Hotel bookings for 2, sometimes under joint reservations, other times with her name listed as guest 2. I didn't say a word for the first few minutes, just flipped page by page while she stared into her coffee cup like she might fall in. Then she said quietly, he told me she was just a close colleague, that they were collaborating across departments. Said he admired her work ethic. She laughed, dry. Funny. I guess lying is hard work. We talked for an hour. I told her what I'd found. She filled in blanks I hadn't even thought to look at. Brooke had sent Ryan gifts, small things at first, then more elaborate. A designer watch, a Mont Blanc pen, a limited edition print from an art gallery in San Francisco. Emma pulled up the receipts from their shared bank account. Some of those gifts had been disguised as client appreciation expenses. She said she only found them because her accountant flagged irregularities during tax prep. Do you want to ruin them? She asked. I shook my head. No, I just want the truth on paper. All of it. Emma leaned in. There's something else. She pulled out her phone and scrolled to a folder titled HR and Legal. Inside were PDFs. I opened one and felt my stomach drop. It was an HR complaint, filed by a junior analyst, against Brooke, alleging unprofessional behavior with a superior Ryan. It included a timeline, email excerpts, and 3 separate incidents where the analyst said she felt uncomfortable due to inappropriate familiarity between the two of them in professional settings. The complaint had been quietly dropped. Settled, technically. Emma said she only found it because she had friends in legal at the firm. She used company money, she added, showing me a breakdown of expenses. 3 of those gifts were expensed. The hotel charges? She called them client offsite events. But they were just the 2 of them. It was sickening, and still somehow validating. I thanked her. She handed me a USB drive with copies of everything and said, if you ever need a witness, I'll be there. I didn't know how to thank her for that, so I didn't. I just nodded and said, same to you. Over the next week, I finalized the evidence package. I had credit card statements from 5 months, travel logs, entry codes and Wi-Fi device data from the Little Italy apartment, photos from the apartment, his shirt, his shoes, the towels, the wine glasses, Uber logs, expense reports showing falsified purchases, cross-confirmation of her itinerary lies through Emma, screensh *TS of her and Ryan's messages, partially redacted, an HR complaint showing workplace impropriety. Everything had timestamps, names, file paths, everything could be corroborated. And that's when I saw it clearly for the first time. Brooke didn't just betray me. She betrayed our entire life. The dinners, the walks, the beach mornings with Mason, the little traditions we built. She took all of it and used it as camouflage, keeping just enough of our routines intact to hide what she was doing. But she was sloppy. Too many details. Too many slips. She got arrogant. She thought I wasn't watching. She thought I was too passive, too forgiving, too slow to catch on. And maybe I had been, but not anymore, because now, I had more than suspicion. I had proof, and I wasn't going to keep it quiet. The first time I realized Brooke was trying to rewrite the story, it came in the form of a carefully crafted email. Subject line, important family update. It was sent to Mason's school principal, his robotics advisor, and even a few of the PDA members. She CC'd me too, probably thinking I wouldn't say anything. Or maybe just to make it look legitimate. It started with vague wording, concerns about Mason's emotional health at home and an implication that I had been withdrawn, erratic, and resistant to cooperative parenting. Cooperative parenting. That was rich coming from the woman who'd lied her way through 6 different cities and thought Wi-Fi logs couldn't betray her. I read it twice, stunned. Not because I was worried anyone would believe it. Brooke's tone had the subtle flavor of someone trying too hard to sound concerned, but because it was so obvious. This was her opening move. She was trying to flip the script before I could even write my first sentence. She wanted the teachers, the principal, even the parents on the sidelines to see her as the put-together, overworked mom doing her best with a cold, distant husband in the background. She was building a stage before the lights had even turned on. But she wasn't ready for how fast I'd catch up. I forwarded the email to my attorney the same day. Then I sent a follow-up to the school, respectfully offering to meet in person to discuss any concerns they had, and to clarify that my focus was solely on Mason's well-being. I included the names of 2 administrators who knew me well from my volunteer work and referenced the upcoming robotics competition I'd been coaching for. Nothing aggressive, just enough to show that I wasn't hiding and that I had receipts of my own. The school didn't respond immediately, but I could feel the undercurrent shifting. Brooke had made her move. Now she'd have to live with what came next. Her public campaign didn't stop there. That weekend, she posted on social media, something she rarely did unless it was for appearances. A photo of Mason from last summer, standing on the beach, sand on his knees, holding up a tiny crab with a grin that could break your heart. Caption: holding on to the little joys while navigating big transitions. Broken heart #momlife #doing my best. The comments flooded in. Stay strong, mama. Whatever you're going through, you've got this. He's lucky to have you. She replied to each one. Heart emoji. Prayers. One day at a time. It would have been brilliant if it weren't so manufactured. The same woman who forgot to show up to 2 of Mason's science nights last fall. Now painting herself as the pillar of stability. But the real fracture came later that week, when she tried to take Mason out of school without notifying me. It was a Thursday. I was working from home when I got a call from the school front desk. Mr. Langston? Just checking. Was Mason supposed to leave early today? No, I said slowly. Why? Your wife's here to pick him up. She said you were both aware. I felt the words stall in my throat. I'll be there in 10 minutes, I said. I drove like a madman, barely registering traffic. My stomach was in knots. Not because I thought she'd hurt Mason, she wouldn't, but because this wasn't a fluke. This was strategy. She wanted to create a moment. One she could later spin as Jonathan's overreaction, or a misunderstanding caused by his control issues. By the time I got to the school, she was in the front office, smiling politely at the receptionist. Mason was standing beside her, backpack slung over one shoulder, looking confused. The principal was there too, having been called down just minutes before. I walked in, nodded at everyone and said calmly, Mason, go back to class. I'll walk you. He looked at me, then at Brooke, unsure. It's okay, bud, I said again. You'll be home after robotics like always. Brooke's face didn't flinch, but her eyes narrowed. Mason, sweetie, we talked about this. Remember? I said we were going to go grab ice cream. He looked to me again, unsure. I crouched to his level. We can do that tomorrow. Right now, you've got your project to finish with Evan, right? That did it. Mason nodded and gave me a quick hug before walking out of the room. The door clicked shut behind him. I stood up. Brooke crossed her arms. Seriously, I could ask you the same, I said, keeping my tone flat. Why are you pulling him out without telling me? I'm his mother, she snapped. I don't need permission to spend time with my own child. You don't need permission, I said. But you do need a co-parenting plan, which we're clearly not following. The principal cleared his throat, sensing the tension. We'll log the incident, he said quietly. For the record. Brooke turned toward him, blinking. Incident? What incident? Picked up my son. That's not a crime. But she knew. The moment those words left her mouth, she knew she'd pushed too far. I didn't say another word. I thanked the staff and left. That night, I forwarded the school's security report and the email log to my attorney. She called me before I even finished dinner. "This is good," she said. "It shows an attempt to alter custody without consent. Keep collecting. Courts respond to patterns." Patterns. That word again. Everything Brooke was doing now. Every post, every school pickup, every sideways glance in a conference room. It was all part of a new pattern. Not infidelity this time, but manipulation. Image management. Reputation rehab. She was trying to paint herself as the wronged party. A woman pushed too far by a husband who couldn't connect. A mother clinging to her son through the storm. But the truth was leaking through the cracks. Her company had started an internal audit. The HR complaint Emma found had resurfaced. So had a new one, this time anonymous, citing favoritism and inappropriate use of company resources. I didn't have direct access to the investigation, but word got around. An old friend of mine, someone in procurement, let it slip during a casual lunch that Brooke and Ryan might be on ice for a while. It wasn't just the HR issues. Accounting had started flagging irregularities in expense reports. Gift purchases. Lodging charges without associated travel documents. Flights billed to projects that didn't exist. A corporate apartment listed as a team-building retreat, used exclusively by two names, hers and Ryan's. She was slipping. The house of cards was bending under its own weight. The same way she built a narrative about being overwhelmed and undersupported, she was now being caught bending corporate policy in broad daylight. It was poetic in a way. For months, she tried to bury the truth beneath polish. Pretending exhaustion was the reason for her distance. Pretending her secrecy was about professional confidentiality. Pretending I was the problem. But reality doesn't care about polish. Cares about proof. And I had it. The school had records. Her company had audits. I had the timeline. Emma had the corroboration. Brooke might have set the stage. But the curtains were starting to fall. I filed for divorce. Mason stayed with me, his choice. The school psychologist confirmed he felt safer, more stable here. I submitted everything. Hotel receipts, Wi-Fi logs, HR complaints, even the school pickup report. Brooke's narrative